Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. This is another rapid fire review video where I attempt to review new releases as soon as possible after I have read them. It doesn't always go that well. I haven't scripted today's video, I haven't thought about it that hard, so you're getting my raw, unfiltered, but slightly edited by Editing Judith, feelings on TJ Klune's In the Lives of Puppets. I'm hoping to get this video out around about the release date, but it is currently the something of April, 5th of April when I'm filming this, so you're getting a sense of how early I read this. I haven't heard anyone else's opinions on this book yet, we're just gonna go. Quick disclaimers before we start: I had a free digital review copy of this book from the publisher via NetGalley. Nobody's paying me to talk about books and all opinions are my own. I'm also possibly expecting a physical review copy of it at some point in the future, but I wanted to get this video filmed, so I won't waft that at you. That will be in a weekly reading video. I will keep this as spoiler-free as humanly possible, though if you do want to go into this book knowing absolutely nothing, click away now. I'm not going to spoil anything major in the book, but you never know, you might be a person who really likes to know nothing, in which case why are you watching review videos? Just a question for you. And I will link the story graph for the book below in case you want to check out any user-generated content warnings. There may not be many yet, but they will build up over time. This is another book in TJ Klune's, not quite a series, but I would say maybe a collection of works. I don't know if they have a specific name, but we have had 3 books with very similar covers, and that's what I'm basing my opinion on. House in the Cerulean Sea, Under the Whispering Door, and now In the Lives of Puppets. My experience with them is as follows. House in the Cerulean Sea I have complex feelings about, which you can go and watch my overbooked video if you're interested in hearing about those. I really liked Under the Whispering Door because I'm a sucker for books about death, and I went into In the Lives of Puppets knowing that it had Pinocchio-based stuff going on, but not much else other than the blurb and the Pinocchio stuff, so I went in with an open mind. This is set in a world in the future where mostly it is robots. We've seen books like this before, we know the setting well. Living a somewhat idyllic life in the forest is Giovanni, who is an android, his son Vic, who is a human boy, a nurse robot, and a vacuum cleaner robot. Get on board, this is the energy that we're moving into this book with. And Vic kind of spends his life living in the forest, tinkering, living his best life, scouring the scrapyard for things that he can use to tinker with. And everything is pretty fine until one day they pull another android out of the scrap and bring him back to life, and everything starts to go wrong and they have to suddenly be on the run. They have to try and rescue his dad. It's a Pinocchio story, so hopefully some of this is sounding slightly familiar. And yes, adventure in this world of robots. I think this book has a really interesting sense of humour, more so than the previous books in TJ Klune's work, because you've got these kind of very silly nurse robot, robot vacuum characters that add a lot of humour to it, that doesn't always work, but for the most part adds a really nice tone on top of everything else. It's kind of like having the comic relief characters. I found that really interesting. I think that was a cool addition in a book that otherwise might have felt a little bit one note or a little bit flat, because it's quite a sad story. It's quite an interesting character study of these various individuals, but for the most part, a little bit level on one emotional note and dipping above and below that, and adding these humorous characters was very good. I think that was a good choice, though it did take a little bit of time for me to latch on to the fact that that was the tone we were going for. So I would say it is not quite as overall sad as Under the Whispering Door. I'm probably going to compare these a lot, I hope that's okay. It's not as overwhelmingly sad as that because you do have this comedy to it, but it's still, broadly speaking, Vic's story is quite emotional. I do think overall it was an interesting plot. The Pinocchio aspect of it, my knowledge of the story of Pinocchio is greater than it has been previously, thanks to the current Dimension 20 season, which has brought me really up to speed on some elements of Pinocchio's story that I did not remember from childhood, but not the best. So I got a lot of the references. There's a Toy Island reference, there's a Terrible Dogfish reference, there's the obvious Pinocchio of it all, but it's not a strict retelling of the story of Pinocchio. It's definitely drawing on those themes and ideas and the original elements of that story, very much there, but not a beat-by-beat retelling. I think in another author's hands, the idea of it's Pinocchio, but instead of being a wooden boy in a world of real people, he's a real person in a world of robots. In another person's hands, that could read very, okay, we get it, how clever of you. But I think because TJ Klune handles it in a way where it doesn't feel like he thinks it's really clever, it works well. And I actually really enjoyed exploring Pinocchio through that lens. And also not getting bogged down in the idea of lying, which is not an insignificant portion of the Pinocchio story, but there's much more to it than that, and I found that very fascinating. You can tell I didn't script this video. I have no idea what I'm going to say next. It's just going to come out of my mouth, and I will justify the statement as much as I can. I've talked about the characters. I really liked them. I've talked about the plot and the writing in general. I liked those as well. I think that the world building, the idea of this world of robots, was very cool. I would have maybe liked to have seen a little bit more of that, but I understand why you don't. I think because I'd read other things where they were tackling with the idea of robots becoming sentient in other ways, so things like the Monk and Robot series by Becky Chambers, which kind of flips this narrative on its head. I definitely had feelings around that, but I don't know that we got into the robot side of things enough for me to feel too strongly about them. I don't know, it was an interesting balance. I think it's a little bit too long, I'll say that. It's not a super duper long book. I think it's probably about 300 pages. It's probably about the same as Under the Whispering Door, but it did feel a little bit bogged down in places, which was a bit of a bummer, and possibly that's to do with my mood when I read it, possibly, maybe, I don't know. It just didn't feel like it sailed through as fast as some of TJ Klune's other books have done. I'm trying to think what else to say. I suppose where these previous two books have been very found family cozy elements to it, this definitely still has that found family theme. I don't think it felt as cozy to me, and I don't think that's a bad thing because I do know people often want a little bit more edge to these things. I didn't find as much comfort from it, I suppose is probably what I want to say, than I did from other books, but that might be me as a person reading it. So there's ace representation. Vic, our main character, is ace. I should probably mention that. I like that. I can't comment on whether it was good representation or not. I'll be really interested to hear what ace readers think when they do eventually read this. Please do link me to any reviews if you've got them. And I thought it worth mentioning that that was there. I think overall, because I have to compare this to the previous two books, and they're not in a series, so that's really unfair of me to do in a lot of ways, but I think we have to see TJ Klune's work as kind of a whole. So I could even pull something like Wolfsong into here, which I've read recently. I like this probably the least of all of them. And I don't know if that's because this setting just didn't quite gel with me, if the timing wasn't quite right, would on a reread it feel completely different? I don't know. I still thought it was very good. However, I think if everything else is a 4-star, it's a 3.75. And that's, by comparing it, you kind of end up going, oh, it was bad. It wasn't bad, just in comparison it wasn't as good. I think if you are a person who has liked TJ Klune's writing in the past, you'll probably enjoy this. I think if you're here for some funny comedy, robots, and also found family ideas and big quests and journeys and fatherhood and what it means to be a person, possibly also would enjoy this. I think if you're a little bit burned out on tropey elements of storytelling, might not be for you at this time, but I think it could come back and be a good thing in the future. I think it's worth reading this book. I wouldn't say go in thinking it's going to be as good as his previous stuff if you've enjoyed his previous stuff, and I would say go in with a vague knowledge that it's going to be emotional but not tear-jerking is probably what I would say. If you've got any good Pinocchio retellings, please do let me know, because I've really kind of fallen for the character in the past year or so, and I would love to read more. So please do let me know those down in the comments while you're down there commenting, and also telling me if you have plans to read In the Lives of Puppets. You can also subscribe. I do script some of my videos, I promise. If you're new here, they are usually a lot more structured than this. It's just been a really long day. So yes, please do subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated. You can also follow me on social media. Come hang out on Discord where we have chill chats about books. I'd like to say a huge thank you to all the ghosts who haunt me over on Patreon. They support the channel and in return get early access to videos, bonus content, live streams, and more. If you'd like to join their number, that's linked below. I will say a final huge thank you to Editing Judith, who will have hopefully transformed this into something that had any kind of cohesion. Thank you so much. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. There's gonna be some bloopers now. Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith, and you're watching another review video here on the channel. The dog has come to join. Hello. Big stretch. Big shake.
Come here. Come upstairs.
This is another book in TJ Klune's, not necessarily a series. Shh. I've just spilled coffee on my leg, but it's fine.